What's up, disciples? Welcome back to another episode of the Red Letter Disciple. I'll be joined in a minute with my co-host, Pastor Chris Johnson, and we've got a really awesome fun interview today with Jason and Kathy Bergstrom. I'll tell you about them in just a moment. The mission of this podcast is to challenge everyday disciples to be the greatest disciples they can be. We believe that the world needs to see the great disciples of Jesus that you are. I'm talking about you and to you. And so we hope this podcast challenges you to do just that. Jason and Kathy Bergstrom, they're a husband and wife duo that are growing disciples through the American Ninja Warrior community of all places. Legitimately, like they've opened a gym, they train ninjas. You're going to love them. I just like the word ninja. I wish I was a ninja. So we're going to find out, what does it take to be a ninja? How are they walking alongside these ninja warriors and helping them find Jesus? And crazy, they raised 9 kids. You thought your life was hectic. So we're going to learn all this and more, how to turn your home into ministry, so many great things. But first, I want to thank our sponsor today, Red Letter Living. One of the things we're really excited about Red Letter Living is when we can help resource pastors and church leaders. And so check this out. There is a Disciple Making for Churches Masterclass that we are launching today. And so I've been in the discipleship space for more than a decade, and I really want to help pastors and church leaders. And so I'm launching a free 3-part video series masterclass where I will break down the key problem of disciple making in churches today. I'll teach you the most important question to ask when it comes to churches making disciples, the one mistake to avoid, and finally answer some top frequently answered questions, or I should say asked questions, when it comes to making disciples at your church. In the end, you'll, by taking part of this free video series, be well on your way to learning how to make greater disciples at your church. And so register today and tell a pastor or a church leader friend or 100 pastors and church leader friends about it. You can do that. Again, it's free, redletterchallenge.com/masterclass. Before we get to the episode, special announcement. Today, ladies and gentlemen, is my co-host Chris Johnson's 50th birthday. You're thinking, gosh, that guy's old. He really is. But hey, will you honor Chris today as a birthday present? Will you do something that will honor and help him and our podcast? Will you maybe, as a birthday present, rate and review our podcast? If you like this, if you want to support what we're doing, give us 5 stars. And I don't know, in your review, maybe say something nice to Chris as well. Truthfully, I couldn't do it without him, and hope his next decade is the best decade yet. So happy birthday, Chris Johnson. All right, team, let's do this. Oh man, today is going to be a fun one. Because we got...
Do it over. Take it over.
No, we're going to have fun today.
Take it over. Fix it in post.
We have a great episode featuring 2 awesome people, Jason and Kathy Bergstrom. They're a husband and wife duo.
Have you ever seen American Ninja Warrior?
Yes. And that's where you may have seen this duo and some of their family. They are growing the kingdom of God, believe it or not, through American Ninja Warriors. That's right. Jason is an American Ninja Warrior veteran in seasons 9 and 10. He's also tied the world record, I found out, for the number of pull-ups in 1 minute.
We're going to talk about that.
Which is 59. And so
you set a world record one time.
I actually did.
And I was his coach when he did it.
We're not here to talk about that.
All right.
Jason and Kathy also, get this, have 9 kids. Some of them have been on the show and performed quite well. In addition, they own a jungle gym in Florida and are using this sport to bring people to Jesus. So I'm pretty pumped when you bring this duo on. We're going to have a good time. So Jason and Kathy, welcome to the Red Letter Disciple. May literally be the strongest people we've had on the podcast. No offense to anyone prior.
Listen, there's not even a contest.
Yeah. So I have an opening question. What's harder, completing a stage of American Ninja Warrior or raising 9 kids?
That would easily go to raising 9 kids.
But I will say both require a strong mental game, a lot of consistency, training, discipline. I mean, a lot of the principles are transferable between parenting and, competing in a general sense. So
But here's the difference. You don't have to have good character or a solid relationship with Jesus to compete on the show. With kids, it's all encompassing. I mean, you have to pray, you have to be authentic. You have to live it out. You have to have skill, character, relationship, and it's all got to come together to raise them successfully. So.
Yeah, my wife and I always said we never want to go over 2 because we're playing man-to-man, right? And now you guys are playing zone defense to like the nth degree.
Right.
2 to 3 is the hardest jump because, you're outnumbered.
Yeah.
Once you get to 4, you get organized. You have a system. Anything over 4, it's just more of the same. So.
Except, what do you drive around in? Do you have like a school bus that you just load everybody up in, or what?
So we are empty nesters now. So he's got a little 2-seater convertible, and I've got an SUV. It's usually just me in there. So
okay, so I want to know that.
We did have a 12-passenger van at one point in time.
Yeah, I was going to say you had to.
Well, we actually had that when we were in youth ministry, so that just kind of lent to adopting kids.
We might as well have 9 kids.
Yeah. Well, and actually, so what's kind of unique too for us is that we adopted teenagers.
Wow.
Most people don't want to adopt teenagers. We were told that that's the hardest age group for them to adopt out, and we said we'll take them.
That's so cool.
That was our ministry beforehand anyway, so it just kind of lent to what we already had going on. And then shortly after we adopted the kids, we got into we used to host French students. So we were French coordinators for a while. So every summer we called them Frenchies, all these Frenchies for a month. And so we would just schedule all of these activities, and we would have like a French American Olympics. They were all intermingled so that we didn't want to create another war or anything, but so we would intermingle them all, and the parents were involved. It was just really an awesome time. So as we've been in ministry, we try to not diversify too much as far as like anything out of our wheelhouse. We just don't take it on. So anything that lends to the family and what we're already doing, that's not going to be a big stretch for us, then we'll go ahead and add it in. So it's been a wild ride, but I just tell people when God's leading the journey, you just don't know what to expect, It's just crazy.
It's amazing. And when you have 9 kids, like you have a youth ministry already in your family.
Yes.
That's the bonus.
Yeah.
Like you're crushing youth ministry numbers.
You're 2 away from the football team.
We got a group discount anywhere we went.
Yeah.
So what's it like? Because I know a lot of parents, obviously, that have become empty nesters, but not many that have had like 9 in the home to then 0. Is that a crazy transition? Is it super exciting?
Like, do you never know when one of them's going to pop in at that point?
Okay, so I will say this. No, you're right. You never know when one of them's going to pop in, but I've been doing a whole lot of remodeling. So I've been kind of excited about that, Not having kids in the house means that you don't have to worry about broken dishes or anything that any decorations that you're putting up, you don't need to worry about them getting messed up or anything. So it is. It's a very different lifestyle, but at the same time, we've always used our home and opened it up for ministry anyway. So we still have a lot of individuals that come and go. We just had a nephew that was staying with us for a while he was doing flight school. So, I just kind of feel like even though we're empty nesters, God's always going to bring people back into our home. That's just the way he rolls.
Okay, let's rewind for a second.
Yeah.
All right, this is an amazing story. 9 kids. So, are you any future plans for any more? Are we going to hit 10, or are we done right now?
Actually, we have 9 we have 5 adopted, 4 of our own, and then we have a Malaysian refugee. So technically, there are 10 kids. We couldn't adopt our Malaysian refugee because he's got family in Malaysia, but when he became a U.S. citizen, he changed his last name to Bergstrom. So, yeah.
And that odd number of 9 was probably irritating. Speaking of odd numbers, I have a question for you, Jason. I was reviewing your notes. I saw that you tied a world record at 59 pull-ups. That's pretty remarkable. But does it eat at you that you couldn't do 60? 60 is the whole number. It'd be 1 per second. I'm just wondering.
It does eat at me. 60 is the record, and that was my goal.
60 is the record.
60 would be a new record.
Yeah, right.
That was my goal.
If I were your coach, because I've coached middle school football for a long time, this is how I would tell you what to do. I'd say the first 30 seconds, you've got the most energy, right? Clearly. Let's pump out like 40 the first 30 seconds. We coast the final and we do 20 at that.
Because that's why he came on this podcast, to hear pull-up coaching from you, Mr. Johnson.
Listen, I can do two or three a minute, so I think I know what I'm talking about.
I think you ought to just be impressed that he did 59 in 60 seconds.
It's hard to go faster. You actually have to push down. You have to push yourself down to increase the speed to get up to that.
My goodness, I didn't even think about that. So you're throwing yourself down, which adds more pressure. So by the time you're done with this, like, no kidding, I can't even imagine. I'm joking, of course. I can't even imagine what you must feel like after that. Like, do you not feel your arms for a week after you do 59 pull-ups? This is insane.
It's not too bad. It's like anything. You train up to it. So
I would imagine so. That's incredible.
It is incredible. Before we talk about the Ninja Warrior stuff, because I think it probably relates. You mentioned that your home has kind of always been a ministry grounds for you. And so, not everybody listening is going to turn their home into or their lives into helping Ninja Warriors. But I'm curious, like, what were the characteristics or the aspects? How do you, if you're living in a neighborhood, for instance, open up your home? Do you put a sign on the outside that says "We are open for ministry," or like what?
No.
How do you actually turn into that? Yeah.
No way.
No, it's all relational. It's connections that we have, connections that our kids have, and when you love people, they bring people that need love to you.
Yeah.
And so that's where it comes from.
Yeah.
The neighbors, they've had different thoughts about it. We had a neighbor that was coming to a Bible study at our house, and the other neighbors asked, like, well, we see all these cars, what's going on? And he told them, he's an instigator, but he said, yeah, it's a cult. Could have killed him, but.
Okay, but hold on. You should preface that by saying he and his wife actually gave their life to Christ through our ministry, but he likes to kind of stir the pot.
Oh, sure.
So, so
all our neighbors like that.
Yes.
So,
that's great. So through relationships and you build them over time, and it naturally happens. Are there any other elements that made your home the place where people would want to come?
The biggest thing is love, but then you have to make it a safe place. And so even whether it's raising kids or having youth over, or of course, no one's going to hurt you. There's no physical harm. There's no emotional harm. There's no put downs. There's no name calling. There's no yelling.
With 9 kids, that's amazing, by the way. Like, that's remarkable in itself.
Well, I told the kids, God gave us our yelling voices for sporting events or emergencies. So unless there's a touchdown or a bear wanders in the house, there's no need to yell.
Nice. That's great.
But then it's also spiritually safe. So very conscientious of what entertainment is allowed, and being, with the kids just dialed in on restricting internet and who might have access to a cell phone in their room at night. And so really keeping a tight rein on those things to make sure that everything is spiritually uplifting.
I mean, that's a full-time job with 9 kids. That's amazing.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
All right.
I actually was offered a pretty lucrative career opportunity before adopting kids. So, and I gave that up because I knew I struggled with it.
Sure,
it's an interesting story, because right at the same time that that I had this career opportunity was when we were contacted and they said, hey, we have 2 sibling groups that we'd like you to look at. And so I wrestled, with trying to figure out how I could balance both, be like super mom. But finally, after some prayer and, reflection on, okay, where's God actually taking me, and where am I going to invest myself? That's when I had to make a decision, and that's where we went. So yeah, it's been a wild journey for sure.
Yeah.
And I think that's amazing too, because I think a lot of us face important decisions, and it's like we've got this opportunity over here and then another opportunity over here. And it's not that anyone is inherently wrong or evil, but rather, we choose the one we feel God moving us toward. And, and you can fast forward your life and realize, I'm really glad we did that, and see those things.
Absolutely.
Present. And so it's,
you just, the trajectory of your life is going to change based upon the decisions that you make. And so, really, I've often thought about that, because we took the proverbial road less traveled, but it wouldn't have been a sin for me to have gone ahead and taken the, the career opportunity that I had, and I could take my kids along with me in doing so. But God had other plans. And it's interesting because if we hadn't adopted all those kids, Ninja Warrior may have never happened for us.
Yeah.
So because Ninja Warrior, a lot of people don't understand, it's half your athleticism, the other half is your story. They want a solid story. It's a reality show. So a lot of people don't realize that. And if they did, they would see, okay, that's why a lot of people don't get on the show, is because you might be a great athlete, but if you don't have an interesting story that has that human component, that's going to draw people in to be attracted to you as an individual, then, they'll skip over you, because athletes are a dime a dozen, but having a story on top of that that's compelling or that's unique, that's what they're looking for.
Yeah. So let's press into your story a little bit. I want to kind of back up then and talk about, how did you get on this path to God's kingdom, growing God's kingdom through the Ninja Warrior community? So what did that look like at the beginning?
Well, I would say, first of all, we were focused on growing God's kingdom through any means.
Yeah.
So it's not like we jumped into Ninja and then like, oh, well, here's how we're going to grow God's kingdom. It's putting God's kingdom first. And we, whether it was ultimate frisbee or the kids and I did West Coast swing for a while, and youth.
That's quite a transition.
Rock climbing.
Yeah. So it's kind of like wherever we are, we're looking for some common interest, building. Look, where are the people at? Where are we going to build relationships? Yeah. But Ninja started, we had moved Kathy's grandmother into our house, where she stayed the last year of her life, and she was bedridden. So we got cable for grandma, because that was the only thing she could do, is watch TV. If you put the remote in her hand, she didn't even have the wherewithal to change the channel on her own. So
I was actually able to control that, which was nice.
but Kathy and our daughters would schedule her care around Cupcake Wars and Say Yes to the Dress and Iron Chef. But Kathy was in there in the middle of the day one time, and Ninja Warrior came on, and we had seen a few YouTube clips. We thought it was cool, but never really got into it. But it was just kind of in that moment that it inspired our imagination. And Kathy told me, she said, you and Caleb need to build something in the backyard over the pool.
Okay, so hold on though. I gotta interject here. Okay, so my son and his friends would climb on the roof of our house, and they would throw the basketball from the roof to so the thing is, I had daredevil kids, so it's kind of like, if you don't get them into extreme sports, how are they going to exercise any of that energy? And so that's when, I told my husband, look, you need to build some of this, and we should start a meetup. And let's just see where that goes, So that was an easy outlet. When you start a meetup, then people are coming to you to connect. And that's when you not only have something to offer them, but then you have opportunity to share your story.
So we would do Ninja breakfast parties. So people would bring breakfast food. We'd train for an hour, and then I'd grill pancakes, and we'd have fruit and yogurt and cinnamon rolls around the pool. So.
I saw that on your package that was done for American Ninja Warrior. They're like, and they built this in the backyard, and then he makes pancakes. I'm like, that.
Is cinnamon rolls the proper diet for a Ninja Warrior? Because if so,
we don't ask questions. We don't ask questions.
But it is a diet for building community.
That's right. That's
right. You burn enough calories doing this thing.
I like
it.
Right. So if the kids are going to jump off the roof anyway,
that was a cheat day.
Yeah, there you go. If they're going to jump off the roof anyway, let's build something over a pool, so then it's a soft fall. Everything is good. Absolutely. Florida year round, they can be in the pool. All good there. I love that.
Most of the obstacles were over concrete, though, with the little wrestling mat on top.
Yes.
Some old mattresses.
Yep, mattresses. Yeah.
So what did those first obstacles? I mean, are you guys pretty handy? And did you do things like to spec or So walk me through that a little bit.
So I even throughout ministry, I was bivocational. I had a handyman business, so I can build anything out of wood. So that was pretty easy. My boys and I built the course, and the backyard didn't allow us to build stuff to the same size as the show, but we had to get pretty creative and had things that we could adjust, and so we changed obstacles every week, kept it fresh and exciting.
I think it's so neat. Like, obviously looking back again, like you look at all the components of what God's given to you, this army of kids that has energy and excitement, this athletic prowess, that is in your family, this handyman, like, and it all kind of comes together, plus this heart for ministry. And it's like, just so beautiful. And I think sometimes as everyday disciples, we don't often think about the things God has given to us already, that we already have in our house, that we already have in our hands, already have in our heads, of using those things as opposed to like trying to force something that's not really there. So it's pretty cool. So so you build these obstacles in the back, and take me from there. What happened? And you have meetups, and so you're meeting people and getting community. So where does it go from there?
Yeah, so the community really started growing, and one Saturday, 2 ladies brought kids, and we kind of panicked because we had nothing for kids.
Yeah.
But kids started figuring it out, and by the next week, I had made a kids obstacle. I took we had a jacuzzi at our house that was, we were scrapping it, but I had the cover, so I took the cover and I made a frame so it sat at a 90-degree angle. And I painted squares, and so the kids could step on the squares and go through the jacuzzi cover without getting hurt. And so that was the first kids obstacle. And then I made a little seesaw for them to walk. And we just kept adding obstacles for the kids, and the kids kind of took over. So grew from there. Yep. But when we went to open the gym, that was our volunteer force, was these people that had trained in the backyard. And so we had we do work days, and people would just show up. People sometimes from the backyard, sometimes people we had never met before would just show up to help us move insulation and scrape up tile, and horrible jobs, but they would show up, and it was in the summer, so it was hot and humid, and after 10 minutes you're already drenched with sweat, and it was tough. But some of these moms from the backyard said, look, I can't work all day, I've got kids, but I'll provide lunch. And so they provided meals every single time. And so that was that community was a strong base to help us launch into a building out the gym.
I saw that video of you guys working online somewhere. It was like on Venmo, where you guys were rehabbing that. On video. And it is so interesting because I saw like there's one video where there's like 6 people taking that big piece of wood and like making it up the ladder. And I look at Zach and I said, this looks exactly like when we started your church. But it's really become, as you said, this golden opportunity for ministry. Yeah. And you said bivocational. We have a really good friend down in Orlando. He started coffee shops, right? And then he started a church off the coffee shops. But this is by far one of the most unique bivocational ministry approaches. It's so cool because God calls us to keep our body as a temple, right? And so you're helping people embrace that, but also walking alongside of them and helping them find God. I think this is like really, really cool. Such a good opportunity.
Well, so kind of a fun story. When we had Ninja in our backyard, as Jason mentioned, that we had all these kids. And so we started doing kids classes once a week. And we have a side yard as well as a backyard. And the side yard, of course, is along the thoroughfare. And so we had neighbors that were kind enough to call the police on us a couple times because of parking. And it's funny because the sheriff would show up and he'd address the parking, and then he'd say, so what's going on in your backyard? And then he'd look and he'd say, oh, my son would love this. So one of the times that our neighbors called the police on us, the sheriff was already here with his son. His son was training in our backyard, and the other police officers showed up, and even the sheriff wasn't parked properly.
He was parked on that neighbor's grass.
He was parked on the neighbor that called the police on us. He was parked on their grass. So anyway, I'm just saying that, we have some fun stories, but but the thing is, the community has been amazing, and
except for the neighbor.
Yeah. I won't say the neighborhood has been amazing, but the Ninja community has been amazing.
Awesome.
And so we've made so many connections through ninja. And the thing is, you have so many people that are spiritually hungry, and when you isolate yourself in the church setting, you're not reaching those people. And so we kind of just recalibrated and decided, we're going to be a little bit more strategic in our outreach versus our in-reach. So
yeah.
Oh, no,
right now, bivocational is really hot, right? It's an important thing. And we have a lot of pastors who are planning churches. They're trying to figure out, like, where do I go? Because a lot of times you'll plant a church, it's a smaller church, and certainly the pastor is an entrepreneurial type. What kind of advice would you give to someone starting out? Who is looking at, and I know you guys didn't do it like this. You probably learned a ton of lessons along the way.
Yeah.
What kind of advice would you give to, a younger you starting out thinking, I'm going to try blank as a bivocational ministry? Like, what kind of advice do you have for that type of person?
Well, I would say you have to follow your passion and your gifting. Obviously, not everyone should be building a ninja gym. So like you said, coffee shop. So many people are passionate about coffee. We don't drink coffee. I don't want to go to a coffee shop. I don't care. And
I make soap out of coffee, but I don't.
But the other thing is a question like, what would it look like if you made zero money from ministry? What opportunities could you have if the church paid you nothing?
Right.
And what if you could pursue that type of avenue? Because we don't make anything from discipling people. The only income we have is from the gym.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just a different dynamic.
Well, and we've pretty much been bivocational since day one, since even going into youth ministry. When we first started out, the church that hired us couldn't pay us. I think they offered us $1,000 a month for a year, and our mortgage was $1,200. And, so really he's always had to do, some sort of work on the side, but, that's where it's kind of like when God gives you skills of the hands or whatever he gives you, then you've got to utilize that. And you got to determine, am I going to utilize this for the purpose of making a bunch of money, or am I going to utilize what God has given me for the purpose of building his kingdom, which has eternal rewards? Mm-hmm. So, that's where we just really had to make a decision about what the direction was that God had for us to be going on versus our own inclinations.
I would also say it's possible that bivocational piece, that work piece, is where your greatest ministry is going to happen.
Yeah.
Where are you going to meet more people that are far from God, inside the church or at the coffee shop? For us at the Ninja Gym, met a lot of people. I was a travel agent for a number of years, and all of my coworkers were far from God, and had so many great conversations and relationships built with those people.
Yeah.
It's good. It's so true. And I know that even, in my life as a pastor, it's so easy for me to get surrounded in a Christian bubble without intentionality, without doing something to break out of my bubble. And that's, I can't speak more to what you just said. That's awesome. So in the journey, then it was backyard, and then it turned into a legit jungle gym. Was American Ninja Warrior before the gym was built, or did that come after?
I competed as we were looking for a facility.
Okay.
So, but we had only had the backyard at that point.
So talk to me then about, that moment that, you were, I'm sure I don't know if you audition, do you send in tapes?
Exactly. You send in a 3-minute video.
Yeah.
And if they like your video, you get an invite to be on the show.
Okay. So I have to tell you, he had only been training in the backyard for 9 months before he was on the show.
Wow.
Yes. 9 months.
Wow.
So you're saying in 9 months, I could potentially be on Ninja.
Yeah. Sure. Well, they just, like I said, they just loved his story.
Yeah.
And so with the video that you have to submit, you have to demonstrate that you have the skills. Like they want to see.
That's where you're going.
Yeah. They want to see you jumping around on some of the obstacles. They want to see you can get the warped wall. They want to see you can do the wing nuts or whatever you're doing. But then again, like I said, the other half is, do you have a compelling story? And even though he had been only training for 9 months, the story was there, and they were just hoping, that he would clear a few obstacles so they could feature him. So that's where when it comes to Ninja Warrior, there's opportunity there, but then, they also do want to see that you can actually legit clear some things.
And I think a lot of like what I'm trying to teach people too is that every person in their life is telling a story,
Yes.
good, bad, or in between. And so what were the elements of your story? Was it the 9 kids and we opened a gym in the backyard and we're community or what,
it was the 9 kids. Yeah, that's the story they liked.
Yep. Yeah.
That's awesome.
You give them a few pieces to bite on, but they're gonna grab the angle they like and run with that.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, if you're pretty good at obstacles and you have no good story, just be fictitious, make something up at that point.
It's
if you don't have a story, you got to have personality.
9 kids.
Yeah.
If you have personality, then they like that too.
Yep.
So
Personality makes a difference.
the question in their mind is, are you going to make good TV?
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, that's what they're looking for.
Say, this is where kind of Ninja Warrior and ministry overlap. Is it's all about trying to help people figure out their story. Like, what is your story? What is your story in walking with Jesus? And what is your story in a general sense? Like, we all go through hurts and pains. We all have different things that happen in our lives. And it's a matter of how do I feature my story in a way that compels people to care about it, you know? And I think that the same is true when we're outreaching to people. We have a journey that we've made. And if you can't demonstrate where God has made the difference or where we've depended on God, had to hear from God, where we actually sacrificed to follow a plan that God gave us versus our own plan, then it's kind of like, well, that, you know, what would compel me to even want to make that journey myself?
Did they include any of that? Like, you know, a lot on secular TV, they're not real big on including faith stories. Did they include that on the package about your faith at all? Or
a little bit. They came to my house, to our house, and they filmed us with the kids and doing obstacles. And they
praying.
They had us. Yeah, they had. There's a one point where I pray over the meal, and so they included that.
Okay, that's cool. I just didn't know. I didn't see that
on the show. They're not going to feature quite as much, you know, of that. But I will say this, that our family does have that reputation in the ninja community. Yeah. And so that's really what we care about the most is all the connections that we have on the ground floor, you know? Gotcha. And so while everyone's competing, we are all there and we're all connecting. And I'll just say, like, this last competition that we were in, one of the kids got sick and his mom, who is not religious at all, came up to me and she said, if there was ever a time to pray, please pray for him right now.
That's beautiful.
And he was able to compete. So, and, you know, and he did well, but it's just interesting to me that people that are irreligious, when stuff goes down, they're looking for somebody who they feel like has a connection to God that they don't have. And they're asking for prayer. So that's kind of a cool opportunity.
Well, and isn't that the way that it kind of works sometimes, right? Like, okay, nothing else I don't know what else to do. So let's try this God thing, you know? Yep. That's really cool that you were there to be able to do that.
So Jason, 9 months into training, you send it in and they say yes. Is it like come in 6 months? And so there's more training. What was it like when you finally heard, we're going to be on the show?
Or is the reaction, oh, I'm so excited. Oh, crap. I'm worried that we're going to be on national TV and I've only done this for 9 months.
So I had a really good sense that they were going to call me. Because I felt compelled to submit my video. I just had this sense that it was going to come together. But once they call you, you're filming in about 5-6 weeks after that.
So there's not much more training.
You're on.
When I say 9 months of training, the submission video had to be submitted in December. So he got the call in January. He had started.
I think I got the call in February or March.
Okay.
Was in April.
But he had started training in June, the summer before, and then was on the show in March or April. Somewhere around there. So So I'm talking a total training package there of about 9 months, maybe 10 months, somewhere around there.
All right. So tell us what the first experience was like. It was season 9, right? That you popped into the show?
Yeah. So it was, I thought I would be super nervous because in high school sports, I would get nervous to run the 2 mile, which, I mean, you're just doing 8 laps in an oval. You know what time you're going to get within probably a few seconds quicker than last week, but my stomach would be in knots. And so I thought I would be nervous. I actually felt phenomenal. I felt great. And then just going up in front of the camera, here's what I had in my mind is that I thought about everyone that was there to support me, about Kathy and the kids who had driven out, my sister and brother-in-law and niece and nephew and friends, and just everyone in the stands. And I just thought, you know what, if I trip off the start line and fall in the water before touching an obstacle, they're going to love me. They're going to, say, oh, we're so proud of you. If I hit a buzzer, they're going to love me, and they're going to say they're proud of me. And so I knew I had that love and support regardless of how I did. And nobody in the stands knew who I was. I had nothing to lose. And so not nervous at all.
I mean,
I can't say that about the second year, but
I mean, no, everybody in the stands and 2 million people watching you.
And cameras like crazy.
Yeah.
Well, if you just flub it, they probably just scrap that footage. So
yeah, it's true. That's true.
Yeah.
So how was the early on in my career, I did stuff with television. And I just like when you're that set is massive. The one you were at, I believe you were in Daytona, right?
Yes.
Like inside the stadium, right?
It was in the parking lot.
Okay, in the parking lot. But that like I can't even imagine how long that set takes to build. It's insane. And then they film it at night. Like what time did you run that?
4 a.m. 4 a.m.
Wow.
They film from sundown to sunup. So pretty much all of my kids and my husband I've filmed 4 or 5 a.m.
So so what time are you at the set?
I had to check in at 9 p.m.
Oh, wow. So this is like you're overnight and all the people in the stands, they're not sleeping.
Yeah.
So you check in at 9 o'clock. And then what are you doing from 9 p.m. to 4 a.m.?
You rest. I brought a cot and a sleeping bag, but there's so much adrenaline.
Well, he's resting.
It's hard to rest because
the rest of us are there.
Because there's so much adrenaline and excitement, and you rest, but then your friend is on the course, so you want to watch them.
Yeah.
Or someone who you feel like you can learn from how they did an obstacle, and you want to get that in your mind. Okay, if they swung with the left, reached backwards with the right, you want to mimic those things that you feel that you can accomplish.
Yeah. So do you legit only get one shot? There's no practice. It's one shot.
If you touch the obstacles before your turn, you're disqualified.
Wow. I always wondered that. Like, did they give them one like run through?
No.
Nothing.
No.
Wow.
They have testers. So it's interesting because our son was able to be a tester, our son Caleb, and he's done really well on the show. He and our daughter Caitlin were the first brother-sister duo to make it to city finals, make it to Vegas. So that was a big deal in 2019. And so and our adopted son Danny, also rookie that made it to Vegas his first year. So, but he actually got bumped. So it started raining. If it starts raining and it's too much, then he was supposed to run, I think it was 5 a.m. 6 a.m. Yeah. I don't know. The time is once it's that late, you don't even think about it.
He got bumped from Vegas or bumped from the
No, he and I were competed together in Miami. They wanted that father-son duo. So I ran at 6 a.m. and he was about 5 runners later, but it started pouring. So they took the last 3 runners, which included Danny, and they said, you can't compete here, but you can compete in any of our other cities. So we traveled to Minnesota for him to compete.
But so what was really good about that though, is the Miami course did not lend to Danny's strengths anyway. Oh, wow. So when he got bumped and we decided to go to Minnesota because Jason has a lot of family there. I do have some family there. And so he was still able to have a whole audience. We had a lot of family members that came out and he did amazing on the course and it lent to his strengths. So, awesome. Sometimes when things happen, you don't understand why, but if God is in the mix, then he's got a purpose in it. And for this, I don't think that Danny would have made it to Vegas if he had to run that Miami course. It was just for him. He's a bigger kid. And he just dominated in Miami or in Minnesota, which was such a different course setup. So, that's what's been fun though, too, is just seeing God in the mix in all of this. And after Jason's first comp down in Miami, we met a number of people there that are in the ninja community, and there are competitions all over the place. I don't think that people realize how big ninja is. There are leagues. And so we met a few individuals that ended up going to a comp with us, and the whole drive, we were able to, share the gospel with them. And we had a lot of biblical conversation, spiritual conversation. One was a kid that is Jewish. And so, he comes from that backdrop. So we were kind of talking about Old Testament, New Testament, and another guy was he, an atheist?
Atheist. He grew up in the church.
And so
atheist.
grew up in the church. So you just never know like where some of this stuff is going to lead. But if you're intentional about making it lead in a certain direction that is, God's direction, then you're going to have more purpose in everything that you're doing.
Sure. Right. And so I think that's such a big piece of a lot of our lives, that momentary setback that we're like, disappointed about in the moment. But then we see actually God had a better plan for your son, Danny, and it's going to be to run here and it's going to propel you further. I think that all of us have that. So you did very well and passed quite a bit of the stages. I've watched enough Ninja Warrior to know, though, that far more fail than succeed. Hardly anybody makes it to the end to hit that buzzer. And so talk to me about failure and the life of a disciple. So like, what can you learn from failure?
I think you learn the most from failure. Right? The saying is that God will not give you more than you can handle. And I don't know who came up with that lie, but you never see that in scripture. I think God always gives you more than you can handle. So you learn dependency on him. I mean, the truth is God will never give you more than he can handle. But throughout our life, God initially, like the first part of our journey, when we were first married, we were poor. And as a husband, as a father, not making enough money to pay for electricity and groceries and rent, and having to pray, having to depend on God. And God, I don't know what to do. I don't know how we're going to make ends meet. I don't know how I'm going to provide for my family. That was definitely more than I could handle. But we had to come to the end of ourselves so many times for God to step in and say, well, but this problem's not bigger than me. Yeah. And so we had to learn that dependence on God. And for a lot of the athletes, they're not believers. They are learning dependence on each other. They're learning dependence on their coaches, but we're always trying to point that to God. And they come to us for prayer. We have this little Indian kid who trains in the gym, and they were at a competition, and he sought out our daughter for prayer before his first stage, and he did really well. Second stage, she was busy running her course or coaching another student, and he didn't do as well. And so he said, it's because she didn't pray for me. And so it's
that's awesome. Though.
Well, and he's Indian, so they're
big time Hindu.
His family, they have a shrine in their house. They actually have an area sectioned off, but they have a variety of deities in there. And so, so it's kind of like, which God is going to benefit me in which area. So it's just interesting. Again, like I said, the conversations that we have. But as far as failure goes, in 2020, our son Caleb, who became, of course, like I said, in 2019, he and his sister were the first brother-sister duo to make it to Vegas, but he was also the first person, the youngest person to ever make the warped wall.
The mega wall.
The mega wall. Sorry, the mega wall. The mega wall is 18 feet. You get $10,000 if you make it.
Whoa.
And so, So, I mean, so that's like a nice little perk too. But anyway, so he had a reputation in the ninja community as not only being an amazing coach, but an amazing athlete. And in 2020, he was going for time. So he was going really fast on this course, and he was doing amazing. And he hit, of all things, monkey bars. And he fell on the monkey bars. So you can imagine how we were just all like, devastated. Everybody was speechless. You could hear the gasp. And then, of course, for him in that moment, he was pretty devastated too. And, I think the thing is, when we have failure, we got to take a moment to, process that ourselves. But it's, what is your character after that? How do you handle it after that? And so many parents in our gym, with how Caleb handled it, really, it affected their kids in such a positive way.
Yeah.
Because the kids are always afraid of failing. The kids are always, they're intimidated by the course, and a lot of them only make it so far. And so to see their coach, their mentor, for some of them, their idol, like they idolize Caleb, to see him fall on such a basic move. And then how he processed it, handled it, and talked to them about, you just get back up and you go again, and you don't let it, like I said, you got to have a good mental game, and he really does. And so he tries not to let it get in his head. He really tries to just deflect it and give it to God. And, he doesn't always know the purpose. We don't always know the purpose in failure, but God knows the purpose in failure, and who it impacts sometimes is more important. Like, it's bigger than us. Yeah. And I think that sometimes when we're so small-minded and our bubble is just us, then everything that impacts us, we think is just for us. When in reality, it's like, no. Sometimes I delay your prayers even, because it's not just you that your prayers are going to impact. It's also going to be this person and this person and this person. We don't know what God's orchestrating behind the scenes. And so for Caleb to have that loss, that failure, it really, like, so many people were positively impacted by that.
Yeah.
You told a story there with the Indian child who wanted the prayer, and they had the altar set up. That just reminded me, I just was talking about this, Acts 17, when Paul comes in and he says, "Men of Athens, I see you are very religious people." Yeah. And because they have all the different deities set up, and they were so afraid of offending God that they had the one, statue, and it says, "To the unknown God."
Yes.
And he's like, "Let me tell you about this unknown
Yes.
God,"
Yes.
Like, that just reminds me, you guys were in the perfect place, the perfect time, where God really worked through your daughter there to be able to encourage, and that little seed, that mustard seed right there, that was beautiful. Like, now he's going to be actively looking for your daughter the next time he tries to go.
He does.
Yeah, he does. He does.
That's beautiful.
It's good. I think, I've also, with your son Caleb, I've heard the phrase before, that people will celebrate you for your strengths, but resonate with you and your weaknesses.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's happening is, none of the obstacles, by the way, look easy from my point of view, but the monkey bars are one of the easier ones from what I see and hear.
Yeah.
And to have them fail at that, open yourself up to a lot of really great conversations with youth.
Yeah.
That's why I'd love to press into that a little bit more, because from the research and just in my own anecdotal, life and evidence that I see, it feels that the younger generations have an even more unhealthy fear of failure.
Absolutely.
Is that something you see, and how do you help them overcome that, if so?
What we see actually is a lot of the adults coming in have a fear of failure.
Oh,
and it's because to be successful as a ninja, you need to be invincible, like we all were when we were 15 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'll cross the street on my bicycle blindfolded, because what's going to happen to me? I'll jump off the roof.
Yeah.
And so our sport attracts the people. We have parents coming in all the time saying, "My kid's climbing everything. They're on top of the fridge. They're jumping off stuff. So here, they need to come here." And so that's who we attract. So we attract some of the daredevils, and they're not afraid to just go after it. But we pull in their parents, and here, try it. Nope. They don't want to put themselves out there, because they might be embarrassed. They might be in class with people that are better than them. And some of these kids, they don't care if someone's better than them. They want to get out there and be a part of they want to be among the best, and they want to try the hardest stuff. So maybe we just attract the crazy ones, but we see that the older you get, kind of the more you have to lose. If a kid breaks his ankle, he doesn't care. We have a kid that's in a cast right now. It's not slowing him down at all on his ankle. He's out running around doing everything, loving the attention, loving the cast. But for a parent, well, now I'm going to miss work. Now I'm not going to be able to drive you around. And there's just so much that we have to lose. You think of.
But that's more of a fear of injury, I think. I'll give the flip side. I've had a lot of experience with interacting with some of these kids after they get off the course, and they're such amazing athletes. They've done so great in so many competitions. And I don't know if there's like a fear of failure for them, more as such a devastating disappointment when they fail, that they just don't even know how to wrap their minds around it. And even when we went to the competition this last week in Vegas, I had to have a conversation with the young. Well, I didn't have to have it, but I just care about these kids. And he was really, you could tell he was having a hard time getting out of his headspace, And so I just talked to him and I said, look, you know what? Your identity has to be bigger than this sport.
That's good.
If you don't have a bigger purpose in your life, if there's not more that you have going on and who you are, then you're never going to be able to get out of that negative headspace, because everything is going to be dependent upon your performance, and we don't always perform to perfection. And so I think that the biggest thing is for a lot of these young people, because they think they're invincible, they do so well in competitions. When they do fail, they don't even know how to process it. And two, I think the younger generation is so used to being coddled and getting what they want that, when they don't, and then when they don't perform, and they can't blame anybody but themselves, it's really hard for them to move beyond that. And of course, I'm not referring to Christian kids, but then there are some Christian kids also in that space that struggle in the same way. They don't know how to process that failure. And so that's where you do need to reemphasize that, look, you know what? I mean, God created us for a purpose, and if he's given you athleticism, then that's amazing. One of the biggest quotes that I love, that I share oftentimes, is Eric Liddell. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Chariots of Fire, but Eric Liddell, so he was a missionary, but he also was a runner, and he had to sacrifice quite a bit in his running career because they wanted to run him on Sundays, and he had a conviction not to. But one of the things that he said is, God made me fast, and when I run, I feel his pleasure.
Love it.
And I often think about that, like the very thing that God hardwired you to do. When you're doing that, like it's almost like God is smiling down on you and saying, yep, that's my son, or yep, that's my daughter, and so the outcome doesn't matter. It's kind of like God is always watching in the same way we as parents are watching. And it's like, I just love to see my son go. I just love to see my daughter go. And if they fall or they fail, like, but how they handle it after the fact, and how they bring, in particular for God, glory and honor to him, in spite of the fact that the outcome was not what they anticipated, that's where their true self is revealed.
Beautiful. Yeah. Go ahead.
We had 12 athletes from the gym compete on the show this season. And before they went to LA for their initial qualifiers, we had them all over for Make Your Own Pizza Night. And after they were done eating pizza, we gathered them in the living room, and I said, okay, here's the scenario. You're competing on the show, but it's a show, but it's a competition, but it's also a platform. So here's the scenario. You have a microphone to the entire world for 1 minute. What do you say? What is that thing that's so deep in you that if you only have 1 minute to share, and you have this wide audience, what do you need to share? And so they said, oh, you're putting us on the spot. I said, that's exactly right. But you got it, because we want them to understand that running a ninja course doesn't define you. There has to be something deeper than just completing obstacles. Yeah. For us, ninja is a vehicle to building character, to helping people become who they're supposed to be, to creating community. Ninja can come and go. It's not the end all and be all. And we tell our kids, our students all the time, like, this isn't the coolest thing you're ever going to do in your life. It's not the pinnacle of your life. You're 7. Like, you're going to get married. You're going to start a business. You're going to have kids, grandkids. You're going to accomplish things. And so we want this to be part of the shaping process to get you there. But what is your message? So if you fall on the course, you still have a message. You still have something that's bigger than you that you should be driving for, whether or not you can do quintuple steps or wing nuts or salmon ladder. Like, what's bigger than that's inside of you? Yeah,
you don't want to be that uncle on Napoleon Dynamite that's just filming himself throwing the football over and over again.
All over them, their mountains.
Oh, that guy. He's pretty funny.
Living his glory days.
Uncle Rico, baby.
There you go, Uncle Rico. Yeah. I think that's so critical that we and you guys said it so well, that we point people back to identity, because that's really where I think kids and adults are getting crushed today, is when they make this life about something that this life's not about. So life's not about ninja, but ninja's an awesome vehicle and tool for us. At the root of it, I'm a child of God, and whether I fail or succeed, like, to him be the glory, right? So I think that's so beautiful. One last question just about the ninja, that particular, I just, in my own life, when I've done hard things, whether it's like mission trips or even physical hard things, and you're literally sweating with these people, like it feels like discipleship or relationship can almost speed up a little bit. Is that like, do you experience that? Like, is there something to just like working hard and working out that brings something that going to coffee, which you and you two and I would never do because we're not coffee drinkers, but most people would. Is there something that comes together quicker because you're doing something hard?
Yeah. Well, they say women bond face to face and men bond side by side. And yeah, it's when you're working towards a goal together. Ninja is a unique sport in that it's very encouraging, very community based, where like oftentimes there's a side-by-side run, which is something they've brought into the as an element this season. And so you'll see someone finish ahead of their opponent. And what do? They turn around and they cheer on their opponent and cheer them into the finish. And they're excited when their opponent hits a buzzer. Or you'll have people actually coaching their opponent on a course on a local gym and carrying a chalk bag. And so there's that. It's a sport that naturally pulls people together, but all sports do. If you think about like back through your best friends, your tightest friends, it's, hey, we played football together. We worked towards a goal together. You think of people that were in the military and they formed this band of brothers because they were in the fight together, and for the rest of their life, even till they pass away, they still are tight with their band of brothers because there's just something about adversity and working together that pulls you together.
Yeah.
So good. Awesome. Well, we ask every guest this question. And so I'd love to ask you at the root of this podcast, our mission is to challenge people to be greater disciples, no matter where they are in their everyday lives. And so if you could issue a challenge to our audience this week, something practically that they can do, what would you guys say?
I don't know if it's the same thing. Why don't you go first?
So one of the things that I've always emphasized with both my kids and even our young people in ministry is never let a compliment go unstated. That wherever you're at, you can find something to compliment about somebody, and that's always a conversation starter. But it's always something that you add value to somebody else's life by doing, even if it's in the grocery store or anywhere you're at. And actually, it's interesting because I had already thought about this, this just what I was going to share as far as, okay, how would I challenge? But then I listened to Craig Rochelle podcast this morning, and he brought up Jesus and the 10 lepers. And he talked about, how only one came back and was grateful. But then he said this, he said, so be that one. And, and I thought, that's exactly where my perspective is. Like, be that one that when you're in the grocery store, you're going through the drive-through or wherever you're at, be that one to be grateful, because a lot of these people, they don't get any gratitude. And that's where you open up the door for relationships, is just by caring about somebody. And again, like I said, never letting a compliment go unstated. I've made so many relationships just by, of course, complimenting someone's hair or whatever, but it looks good on them. I would never wear it, but it looks good on them, know? So, but that's the thing, is that, that's uniquely them in this moment. So find something positive that you can say to somebody.
It's good. Yeah. Like that coat for Chris. I would never wear it, but I mean, come on.
But it fits his personality.
Good for me.
Very good.
Yeah. He doesn't tell you that I am legally contracted to have to wear this.
That's hilarious. But you know what? So I will say this. There are some people that just like palm plants in their house, and there are other people that like vibrant, bright plants, so we all have these different personalities. Yeah. And I think that we all just need to appreciate more the diversity of what each of us bring to the table.
Yes, he's a boring fern, and I'm fantastic. I get it.
I think that's what she meant.
That's what she meant. That's what I heard. That's what I heard. Yeah.
Anyway, okay, Jason, what you got?
So I would say, take a step of faith, that's out of your comfort zone. Something that's a little bit scary. For years, I prayed for boldness. God, give me boldness to share with a stranger. And I learned that for me, boldness never came through praying for it, but through actually doing things that required boldness. Like a muscle, God, give me big arms, but you don't get that till you go to the gym.
Yeah.
And so just sharing with people. I have a young guy, Nikolai, that I disciple, and he contacted me the other day, said, I'm so burdened to share with people, but I'm afraid. So I'm like, okay. So I picked him up and we went to the park, and he thought I was going to give him some verses on boldness, but I said, we're going to pray for it. We're going to go talk to a stranger. And so we met this guy, talked to him, he didn't want prayer, but we had a great conversation with him. And from then on, he's been getting after it. And so, yeah, just take that step outside of your comfort zone, because that's where faith is necessary. And that's where we, when you're in somewhere that's greater than yourself, you figure out, hey, God's given me more than I can handle, but not more than he can handle.
Love it. All right. We got listeners 2 for the price of 1 challenges this week. So if you don't leave a compliment unstated, or if you take that bold step of faith outside of your comfort zone, let us know. #RedLetterDisciple. We want to be praying alongside of you for that, and love to see what God is doing. So what I learned is that for the next 9 months, I need to be working on my story, eating cinnamon rolls in the morning, making my own pizza at night. I might get on the Ninja Warrior.
And
Chris, how do you want to end this?
And you'll probably finish by doing 58, 59 pull-ups in a minute.
Absolutely.
That's right. It's those cinnamon rolls. Those cinnamon rolls, baby. That energy.
So every end of every podcast, our crew put together a custom game designed for our friends. And so we have designed a game specifically for the 2 of you.
Oh, wow.
And it's from the Men's Health magazine. They have listed the 10 hardest workouts ever recorded. And so what I want to do is I'm going to put the 2 of the 10 workouts together, and then I'm going to ask you which one each of you would have to pick. If you had to pick one of these workouts, which one would you do? Okay. Does that sound okay?
All right.
All right. Let's see. Here we go. Number 10, they said 45 minutes of constant jumping jacks.
Ooh.
45 minutes. Number 9. So it's 45 minutes of constant jumping jacks, no pauses, versus a 1 mile 200-pound sled push. So, like the football sled, you're pushing a 200-pound football sled for 1 mile around a track. Now, we'll adjust for weight because obviously, you're not 200 pounds. But I'm saying if you have
I appreciate that adjustment.
Well, like 125 for you, okay? Would you rather do 45 minutes of jumping jacks or a 1 mile sled push?
I'm a stamina guy. I would do the jumping jacks.
Okay. What do you think?
I would definitely do the sled push.
Kathy's doing
Get it over
I'm just going to say any woman listening that's had a number of kids knows you do not do jumping jacks for 45 minutes. No,
okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Not without a bathroom break. No way.
I'm sorry. I mean, listen, maybe that's why.
You're a guy. I understand. You're not going to feel my pain.
That's maybe why it's in men's health and not women's health. That's all.
Yes. I'm going to say, right. Yeah.
Okay. Swim a mile with your right hand only. Swim a mile with your right hand only, but you can only swim the mile in clockwise fashion.
Oh.
So wait a second. Let me think. Oh, wait. Is that how it would be? Yeah, that's how it would be.
Backstroke.
Right? Oh, my goodness. That's tough.
Wait, is that the backstroke?
No, I'm trying to think clockwise. So clockwise would be like this, right?
Okay.
Yep.
So it's a backstroke, 1 mile.
Right hand.
Right hand only.
Okay.
So you just be doing circles the whole time, probably. I guess you can kick. Or check this one out. Number 3 hardest workout. Perform 100 push-ups, and immediately when you get done, do 99 push-ups. Immediately when you're done, do 98, 97, all the way to 0.
Oh, my word.
Yeah.
Both are killer.
Yeah.
I'm going to take the backstroke on this
Backstroke, okay.
I'll take the backstroke.
I'm not a great swimmer. Swimming a mile with 2 hands is tough. But the push-ups, that's brutal.
Yeah, that is brutal, right?
I have to go with swimming.
He's the pull-up guy, not the push-up guy.
Oh, yeah. See, notice I'm not giving you pull-ups. All right. Last one. Step into the ring with a pro MMA fighter. If you lose, you must run a full marathon.
Oh, ouch. Jeez.
No wonder this is Men's Magazine. Women would not even come
so
up with
ridiculous. This is so
There's no
ridiculous.
way.
You know what a farmer's walk is? Do you know what
yeah,
a
you're
farmer's
carrying
what
the
is it?
weight.
Yeah, farmers carry. Yeah.
Like you're just carrying it at your waist?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
So 1/4 mile farmer's walk with 125-pound dumbbells. If you drop the waist, you got to do 25 burpees as a penalty.
Oh yeah.
And wait,
versus step in the ring with the MMA fighter.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I do the farmer's carry.
I
Okay.
good.
I do the farmers carry.
Would you do the MMA fight, Zach?
No.
Okay.
I'm a lover, not a
That'll
fighter.
Lover, not a fighter. Okay, those are the correct answers.
There you go.
Guys.
Yeah.
Fast. All right. Well,
Yeah.
hey, Jason.
I like my brain intact, you know. what I'm
Yeah, for
saying?
real. I hear you.
Jason and Kathy, if people want to connect more or find out about what you guys are doing, where's the best place these days?
Probably a good connection point would be Instagram. I'm Bergstrom.dad. She's Bergstrom.mom.
There you go. That makes sense. Awesome.
And then, of course, we have the Bergstrom Bunch podcast. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
And there's a bunch of Bergstroms.
Yeah.
So it's
there are a bunch of Bergstroms. So, fun fact, I'm just going to tell you. Actually, I'm getting together this Friday with a gal who listened to one of our podcasts on raising kids, and she's got a 12-year-old that she's single mom. Lives in Tampa. And so she contacted me actually back in March. So it's been a long journey for us with Ninja. But anyway, I'm getting together with her this Friday, because she needs some advice and stuff. So you just never know what God's going to open up when you open yourself up to new adventures and, experiences and move into other spaces. So, it's just,
cool.
it's been kind of cool. Yeah, it has been cool.
Very cool. Jason and Kathy, you guys are an inspiration, and I hope get people's minds spinning about how God can use them in their everyday life. And so thanks so much for doing what you're doing. And
thanks for having us on the
all
show.
the blessings with Ninja Warrior. And my family will be watching now with a little bit more keen eyes.
We know them. We know them.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll see us cheering loudly for our kids. So
Yeah.
That's awesome. Cool.
So, Jason, are you not competing anymore? Or what's
So
up?
I competed 2 seasons. After that, I submitted 3 more times with no callback. So we'll see. I may be back at it. I train. I'd love to be back on the show, but that's out of my hands. So
Yeah,
there you go.
We have 4 Bergstroms on the show now, so
we have too many Bergstroms.
so they're that's why I'm telling you, they keep putting pressure on me a little bit because they want a new Bergstrom face.
Then you parlay
there you go. Next season.
You parlay it and say, "What about husband and wife? Come on."
there you
Oh my goodness.
All right. Well, blessings, Bergstroms. And thanks so much for being a part of the Red Letter Disciple.
All right. Thank you.
Well, I told you, we're going to learn a lot. I don't know. Do you have what it takes to be a ninja warrior? Maybe you do. Maybe you don't. I'll be eating cinnamon rolls and making my own pizzas all the time. We had a great time today with the Bergstroms, and I want to thank them for coming on to the show. And again, Chris Johnson, his 50th birthday today. He wanted me to tell you his Venmo account, but I told him not going to happen. So the way you can help us and him is rate and review our podcast. That would be really meaningful to us. It's also, if you subscribe or follow on your favorite platform, how you're never going to miss a future episode. And I'm telling you, you will not want to miss next week's. Every season, we have a story or two that just is challenging, inspiring, and jaw-dropping. And next week is one of those stories. Happy to bring Davey Blackburn, a new friend, onto the podcast. Davey was a pastor raising a young family when out of nowhere, when he returned from a workout at the gym, sadly found his pregnant wife murdered. He's going to tell us the incredible story and how he has turned this awful tragedy and pain into purpose for his life. He now leads the Nothing is Wasted Ministries, the Nothing is Wasted podcast, and I can't wait for you to hear his story. Now he's helping other people take their stories back. That's coming up next week. So again, subscribe, follow, rate, review, and we'll see you back next week for another episode of Red Letter Disciple.